Hey, what is up? We're here with another Mandalorian review, season 2, episode 4, and we have a lot to get into. So let's start right off the bat. Opening scene, it's absolutely hilarious, at least in my opinion. Baby Yoda's trying to fix wires on the spaceship. Mando's trying to give him instructions. It kind of gives me a reminder back to if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, when Rocket's trying to tell Baby Groot which button to pull or which button to click, and it's Baby Groot. Baby Groot doesn't really understand. It's the same thing with Baby Yoda. What were your thoughts on that opening scene?
It wasn't so much Baby Yoda as it was Mando because I've been rewatching some of the earlier episodes and I forgot how like blunt Mando used to be, like how like gruff, like just like the scene in chapter 2 and like he tries to like he uses his flamethrower on the Jawas and stuff, like trying to like negotiate like in a moment of anger. I'm like, that Mando would not have like been as sweet or as like fatherly as he was, not just in that opening scene but the whole episode. Like at the end when he's like wiping Baby Yoda's mouth, I was like, this guy has like he's softened, he's changed in the way he was like just talking Baby Yoda through it. I could just picture like chapter 1 Mando like getting upset like faster, being more fed up, but he just like talks it through it. He doesn't get mad. He's kind of like, okay, like it was worth a shot at least. And so like it was just a cute bonding scene. It was just nice to see like that relationship develop. We talked about it when we were doing our chapter 10 review, when he's like when he sends like the guy up into the air, the jetpack, and he and Baby Yoda just share that look. Like it's just nice to see like their relationship, like it's like a true like father son type thing. So it was just a really sweet and like funny scene. And just yeah, it was just like, but like Baby was like looking at the wires and he like obviously has no idea what Mando's talking about. It was just a cute scene.
Yeah, I mean, and you can relate to that fatherly moment with the part at the end of this episode where Mando's wiping,
Yeah.
and Baby Yoda like pukes a little bit all over. We'll make sure to note that this is a spoiler episode, just for you guys in case you didn't know before. We didn't really give away anything, except for a few adorable Baby Yoda moments, but not a big deal.
Right.
Anyways, let's move on, and I'll kind of go break down through what happens in the episode. Mando lifts off his helmet just enough to eat, drink some soup, and then puts it back on. I guess we see the struggle of Mando never keeping, you know, taking his helmet off.
I actually like really enjoyed it just for the sole fact like they didn't need to add that into the episode other than like as a transition to like, oh, we're going back to Navarro. But like I've always, it's like one of those things like you wonder like when you're in bed, it's late at night, and you're like, how does Mando eat? Like how does he just take it off like out of like he eats separate from Baby Yoda? It's just like a little random thing. Just it was just nice to see that little like aspect of his like life shown. Like they didn't have to, but it was just, again, it was just like cute and like just nice to show that like non-action part of the character.
Yeah, I mean, you got to imagine if maybe he just gets sunburned really bad and has to keep the helmet on.
Mhm.
Uh, but that's exactly right. He says we're going back to Navarro. And then I think this episode, more than any episode, has more scenes without Mando in it.
Yes, yeah, it was funny because we've been saying the past 2 episodes how like Mandalorian is such a Mando focused show. Like we never leave his side, and like the entire second half of the episode, he like drops out, and I was like, oh, okay, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and we'll work our way there, because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about there. But in these scenes without Mando, we start off seeing Cara Dune as the marshal, getting some money back that some pirates stole or some smugglers or whatever stole. What did you think of that action sequence?
Um, hmm. I think I think it was a good action sequence. I'm like, what's it called? Like, it seems like that the stunt coordination team like stepped it up, even though they were like already really good in like season 1. I know like they won an Emmy for their work, and like I feel like they just, maybe it's the editors, maybe it's the stunt people, but there just seemed to be like a nice flow throughout it. It's not one of my favorite fight sequences. That My favorite fight sequence in the whole series probably comes later in this episode, but I mean, it was a nice, pretty straightforward introduction for Cara Dune.
Yeah, I think introducing her as like she's evolved, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of times shows will just like be like, oh yeah, she's evolved. But in this one scene, you kind of it encompasses like how she's changed.
Yeah.
She's still ruthless, that's for sure, but like she's doing it for a good reason. She's helping people other than herself now, when before she
Right.
seemed kind of a selfish outcast.
Mhm.
So I think it's a good little thing for character development within the episode. We keep on moving on. Carl Weathers has an awesome new outfit. I love that new outfit. Never
Yeah.
go back to the old one again.
Mhm.
Uh, and then Baby Yoda goes to class and he uses the Force to steal some cookies. I
Yeah.
love, I love that moment. The only thing is, I felt like that scene was a little too long.
Mhm.
I felt like they kept on holding on Baby Yoda, and I'm like, all right, I get the point. I get the point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I feel like, I mean, it was all right. It was just nice to see, like, again, it was just like another like peaceful non-action moment to help like like just like world build. Did it run a little long? In a way, yeah, especially when you like look at the pacing of everything that came after. Like it kind of like hits that like they hit the brakes and then they just like hit the gas like right after. So I mean, it was just nice to see like, oh yeah, like schools are like a thing in Star Wars. I don't think that's ever really been a thing outside of like the Jedi like the Jedi Academy. So
Right.
mm,
Yeah, we've gotten bathrooms are a thing in Star Wars and schools are a thing in Star Wars. Two highlights of the
yeah,
Mandalorian. Um, so they have this discussion about how no one can ever settle the outer rim. If you remember before in the original trilogy, I mean, and even in the prequel trilogy, Jabba runs the outer rim. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like it's a smuggler's paradise essentially. It's not. It's too vast of a area to really run over, and the people in the core regions don't really care. I thought that was an interesting little nugget there. But then we transition, and Blue Guy is back, as I like to call him, Blue Fish Guy,
yeah.
because he kind of has a fish-looking head
Hmm.
from the episode. And I love that little thing where his like, I can't, some sort of particles like pump out when he gets
Yeah.
nervous.
Hmm.
When he sees Mando, he's like, "Oh no, I'm dead."
Hmm.
I love that interaction. Basically, that's where you get the mission report. They're gonna go to the space on Navarro that's away from the settlement and basically get all of these stuff and sell it on the black market and get it
Right.
off the planet. Which Grief Karga, I love how he has like questionable motivations about why he wants to do everything.
Hmm.
Like there's still questions as to like, oh, you want to, he's like, oh, I want to make the planet safer. And it's like, do you, or do you just want to get more money from selling the
Yeah.
weapons?
That's one of the things that like I was like thinking about watching the episode. I was like, there's always a 50% chance, no matter where Mando goes, you have like fit like when they were like when Carl Weathers was like man the Baby Yoda will be safe at school. I was like, there's a 50% chance you are absolutely wrong, but and like, there's like a 50% chance you're lying about everything else. And so I don't know, it keeps things interesting. Little overly stressful, but it works for the the unpredictability.
Yeah, 100%. And so they go to the base. Mando tosses a dude a few thousand feet to his death.
Hmm.
Poor dude was screaming the whole way down. Uh, Him and that guy from the last episode. Mando likes dropping people from high altitude.
Yeah.
It seems to be a habit of his. And then they go into the space, right? And also, Imperial security, you need to get your cameras at better spots.
For
Like
sure, for sure.
like you're pretty far and you got some pretty nice technology, but your cameras are garbage. Like absolute garbage. They don't see them in the base. Cara Dune chokes out the guy on the computer, turns off all the cams,
Hmm.
finds where to blow up the base because there's still Imperials on it.
Hmm.
Go through all of that. And so everything seems like it's going well, right? They've got everything done. They just got to get out, right? It's a
Right.
regular episode of The Mandalorian. And then it's like, what are they purging? What are these documents that these guys say they have to purge?
Right.
And then we see these bacta tanks or these tubes or whatever you want to call them. And inside of them are what looks like attempts to clone the Emperor and Snoke. You hear the musical theme. I don't know what movie it's from, but it's either the Emperor or Snoke's musical theme.
Hmm.
And you're like, oh my God, are they seriously? Is they trying to clone the Emperor? Like, are they trying to clone Snoke? Like, it's crazy. It's a whole revelation for the show. Uh, the scientist talks about having the higher M counts. I assume that's referring to midichlorians.
Yep.
Uh, and taking blood from Baby Yoda, but not wanting to kill it because they want to get more and more and more blood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a massive revelation for the show. I think it has massive implications for the rest of the story of The Mandalorian. What were your thoughts when the scene came around?
It was it was as shocking as you're making it out to be, just because like I remember when the show was first announced, they were talking about how like it would over time depict the rise of the First Order, and like that kind of like I didn't that thought that detail didn't like leave my head, but it was also like there's so much going on. I was like, we can wait in the First Order, so I wasn't expecting like they would so clearly show like what was going on, and that was just like really, it's just really fascinating because one, you brought back midi-chlorians, which is a controversial Star Wars aspect on its own throughout the fandom, but then you also depict you depict what I have to, well, like I think everyone is assuming is to be some sort of precursor to the Snow clones, or Palpatine rebuilding his body is something. And so that idea that like Moff Gideon, because I know for me, I thought like Moff Gideon was just like a zealot, like leading like an offshoot or like the remnants of the Empire. But I didn't even think like he would be so far as like maybe being in contact with Palpatine and like setting up his plans further along. So to see that was just very, very shocking. My first thought actually was, I see they're trying to redeem Rise of Skywalker's plot points, because like that was one of the points that I wasn't fully on board with in Rise of Skywalker, the way they communicated the whole cloning aspect. So to see this like help expanding on that, that's very interesting. I'm intrigued to see what like the final big picture of the storyline looks like, and how this could potentially maybe improve my viewing of Rise of Skywalker, just because now I have like context and like history to the whole project. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. I did not expect them to go this deep into like the lore that fast.
It's so fascinating. So for me, I was thinking about this and I'm like, this retroactively makes Rise of Skywalker better, right? Even just this
It gives
episode.
context. It gives context at least.
Because the problem with Rise of Skywalker wasn't that they brought the Emperor back, though I wasn't thrilled about that concept either way, to be
Mhm.
perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But you can make it work if there's foreshadowing, if there's a valid explanation of why he's back, and it's
Mhm.
not just, well, the Emperor's back, just accept it and move on. It's like, no, 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 no. We saw him fall to his death in episode 6. You
The
can't
whole
just
Death
like,
Star blew up.
yeah, and the Death Star blew up. So what happened? Right?
Mhm.
You can't just say he's back in episode 9 and then like, oh yeah, he was controlling Snoke too.
Mhm.
It feels like how it seems like you're just making stuff up, right? And of
Yeah.
course you're making stuff up. It's a sign, it's a fictional world, but it doesn't feel authentic to the universe you've built. And I
Mhm.
think bringing this thing in, that the Emperor had a contingency plan, right? He had Operation Cinder. He's obviously has this group of zealots who are like the smartest people left in the Empire and the most loyal, trying to help resurrect him to bring him back to his glory so he can have his revenge.
Right.
And all of that makes it more interesting. And I'll be curious when this show ends and all these storylines finish playing out, if I feel uh like this show is better. This show makes Rise of Skywalker significantly better because it provides the foreshadowing that we as an audience needed to get to that moment.
See, that's the thing about this show. This could quite potentially be like the most important Star Wars media like introduced since like the prequels, like barring all the sequel barring, because like just the way they managed to like connect, we're gonna assume at this point the sequels and the aspects of what they did in the final film, the fact that they're reintroducing Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, they resurrected Boba basically, and the fact they're able to connect so much lore and like basically like just keep expanding on that. Like this could be the most like important Star Wars like media, just on how much they're able to utilize both sides of like history, the prequel originals and the sequels. And yeah, I don't know. They're like even like anticipating Ahsoka's return in next episode, and what we were saying last week about will they explain like Ezra? Will they explain like what happened after Rebels? Like there's so much they could just keep building on.
Right. In the last two episodes, this world has gotten so much larger. The
Hmm.
lore has gotten so much larger. The stakes have gotten so much larger. This is what makes the show so great, right? It's these sort of things that make the implications so much broader. It makes the talking for fans so much interesting for people like you and me who want to talk about the show all day. It's just fascinating what possibilities there are. Now, on the Ahsoka front, we'll talk more. We'll circle around to that at the end and talk more about if she actually is in next episode or the episode after, because I have some stuff I've read up on about that. So going back to the plot, right? We have that scene. Stormtroopers come in. Mando has to go get the baby because now he's like Moff Gideon's still alive. Which is here's actually let's touch on this first. Mando finds out Moff Gideon isn't dead.
Hmm.
Here's what confused me. Last episode, Bo-Katan knew that Moff Gideon wasn't dead.
Yes, she didn't tell him. I don't think, from what I recall, she never actually name drops Moff Gideon. She just asked the Imperial officer, where is he? Like,
Right,
does he have it?
right.
They never explicitly drop his name, and she never explicitly asks him, probably because Mando technically never asked.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was like, why do I need to ask about a dead man? So
Right.
I feel like technically it follows through somewhat. It follows through somewhat just because he didn't know, he didn't ask, and she neglected to tell him. Probably because
Right.
she didn't even anticipate that him
It
and
would
Gideon fought in chapter 8.
right. That's what no, but I thought that moment was so funny because I'm like, those sons of they worked it just perfectly.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, that attention to detail there. Because I went back to the episode and I was checking through, and I was like, did they slip up and they mentioned Moff Gideon last episode? Because we saw him. Did they say his name or anything?
Yeah,
Or anything that would have been a clear alarm bell to Mando?
yeah,
I was like, no, they worked it perfectly. They worked it perfectly, so Mando would have never known that Gideon was alive, and then there's that reveal,
yeah,
which is really I'm excited with. I'm just excited with where the series would go, and I love how detailed they are with their thought on the show.
for sure. Yeah, it's
Um,
yeah. You go. I'm just based on
yeah,
that.
yeah. So Mando just essentially goes off to find the child, and then we have Cara Dune, Grief Karga, and Bluefish guy, as I like to call him now. Basically trying to get out to the base. But what were you going to say before we keep on going?
Well, actually, no, I was gonna try and segue to this too because that was the next part of it. So this worked out perfectly. But like that whole last action sequence is one of, if not my favorite from the series. It's just like it's just so like tense. It's so like well done, and like the fact that like Mando's not there was like pretty interesting. But it's just like I thought it looked really great. Like the whole like rocky terrain, like I thought like was looked really cool. The whole like stormtroopers like flying off the edge, like down into the canyon, even and then leading up to the final like air battle with Mando and the TIE fighters. Like that shot of like the TIE fighter and like the Razor Crest like charging at each other. I was like, that's so cool. That's so like I was like, that's just so cool. That's so awesome. And like one of the things I enjoyed about like Rogue One was like it was just a straight up like war movie. Like its third act is like one of my favorites in the franchise, and so like this brought a lot of that energy back as well. It's just this all out like battle, like no holds barred. It was drawing also very much from the season one finale energy. It was just Moff Gideon and his troops and Mando and everyone else trying to survive. Like brought a lot of that energy there. So it was a great action sequence. I have to say, like all of the Mandalorian directors have like really know how to shoot action. From like the crate battle with John Favreau, the New Republic chase with Peyton Reed, the whole ship assault with Bryce Dallas Howard, and then now like this whole final sequence with Carl Weathers. I'm like Disney directing school, whatever experience you guys are drawing from, like it shows. It's like real good.
Right, and I think we have to give credit to their stunt coordinator,
Yes.
Sam Hargraves,
Mhm.
because they hired him for season 2 to amp up the action even more, and he's done a spectacular job. Now, I thought it was hilarious when they got the speeder bikes going down and they're going down this rough terrain on this, and Navarro looks a lot like Solist for those of you guys that know
Yeah.
the planet from I think it's in Battlefront 1 and 2.
Mhm.
Um, but they're going down this rocky terrain and two of them crash into each other. And I was just like, that is such a stormtrooper thing to do. Like, I love that. And then they go on this chase. I love the moment when you can't find the third scout trooper. Like, where is he? Where is he? And
Mhm.
he's about to throw the sonic imploder, if you remember from Rogue One.
Right.
I think it's the same one. He's about to throw it down the hatch. And then Grief Karga finds him. It's like, haha, got him. And just like the little quips from Grief Karga
Yeah.
in those moments are great. The only problem I have sometimes is Bluefish guy's banter with Grief Karga feels forced.
Yeah. At a certain point, it got like by the time like he was like forcing him to go turn off the lava thing or whatever, I was kind of like, all right, this shtick is getting a little old. Now he just kept like blue guy protest, Karga either knocks a few years off his sentence or he like just like yells at him, and I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
like it's running a bit old now.
I should have done the math on how many years he got off his sentence. It was like
Mhm.
from 330. He got at least 100 and something years off, maybe
Yeah.
200 years off
Mhm.
total. I mean, props to him, but I don't know how long that species live. It might be still his whole life.
Right.
I don't think he's the child who lives for 900 years.
Mhm.
So let's move on. They're like, yes, we did it. And then this shot of all we got from the trailer of the TIE fighters coming off.
You hear like their noise, like they're like that siren noise, like you know what I'm talking about? Like I was
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
god, this is this is
And you
it.
get the lava jumping out from the ground and exploding up as the TIE fighters rise. The imagery there is just absolutely stunning. And then you get this awesome chase scene where the TIE fighters are chasing after that troop transport that they're all in. And that whole thing is gorgeous. Oh, seeing TIE fighters, fly through close terrain is always really cool. They have better aim than stormtroopers, but not by much.
Mhm.
And that whole sequence plays out so well. And I think the last thing to note about that sequence is how you talked about the Razor Crest swoops in and saves the day right as they're in the opening.
Yeah.
And then you get this another awesome dogfight.
Mhm.
Because I know the one in episode 2 felt like a World War II one. And this one just felt like an epic space battle, right?
This felt like I felt like Top Gun energy from
Mm-hmm.
from this episode,
Right.
especially just them going like at it, like no, like nothing held back.
Yeah. And Mando showed that spinning is always a great trick. Shout
Shout out
out
to
to
Anakin
Anakin
Skywalker.
Skywalker. And then, Mando just dips. He doesn't come back to the planet. I guess I don't know what the future of Grief Karga and Cara Dune is. If we want to talk about that, or there's really actually let's talk about that because Grief
Wait,
Karga, I'm less sure. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, did that feel weird to you when they were like, "Hey, like, Mando, can I buy you a drink?" And he's like, "Nah, I got a dip," and then he just like left. Like, did that feel weird to you?
I don't know. I mean, in one way it did, but it also felt logical
Okay.
because what if like now he knows Gideon's still in the equation. He knows Gideon wants the child, right? A lot
Mhm.
of people have been after him because of his Beskar.
Right.
Um, and some people try to jump the child, which I don't know why that didn't ring him off that something was weird.
Yeah.
Um, but now he's like, oh, Gideon knows that I'm alive, and he's been sending those people after
Yeah.
me and the child. So he's still a threat. So I can't stay here on Navarro when they probably send a distress signal or whatever.
Okay. I know it's like at least for me, like, yeah, it made sense. It just felt like a little like it just felt like a little quick. It's like boom, action sequence, boom, he's gonna go, and like I was like, oh, okay. Like I don't know, maybe just like one like dialogue scene where like just to like segue into then like what's the future of Cara Dune and Carl Weathers if they're like if he was like if they were like if you need us like we will be there, like even just something small like that, so man they could establish that. It just felt a little like I can't say bye even though you guys are like my main allies from season one, but like but yeah, it made sense. It just felt a little quick, at least for me.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, because the resolution, before we get the surprise at the very end of the episode, is a wind down of like Grief Karga just being Grief Karga, talking to the rebels, or not the rebels now, the New Republic that's now
Yeah.
here, investigating what's happened. And
Right.
it's very unclear as to what Grief tells him beforehand, like before they cut in on the scene.
Hmm.
Like, what does he tell them about the Empire? I don't know. But like, did they mention that there were these like clone things and tanks? I doubt it.
Yeah.
You know, because that would be a red flag for everyone.
I do enjoy seeing this like push and pull with like the New Republic and the Outer Rims, like the line in earlier in the episode when Karga's like the Empire couldn't control us. What makes the Republic think they can? Like I just love seeing that like like not really political side, but just that like relationship between the two sides.
Right, and it goes back to season one when Werner Herzog's character, the client,
Hmm.
is like, does the galaxy seem any more peaceful now that the New Republic is in charge? And it's
Yeah.
like, and, and repeatedly it's shown, not really.
Hmm.
Like, maybe it's fine on the core worlds, but once you get to the outer rim, I mean, it it's the wild wild west, which is what the show is. It's a western.
Right.
Like, it's survival of the fittest.
It's a whole free for all.
Yeah. What is interesting is Cara Dune's talk with the pilot at the end,
Hmm.
which very much, there's the final shot that's like I don't know if it's a crane shot or not, but it just slowly moves in on her, and it's kind of like a powerful shot, right?
Hmm.
Like a shot of her in a position of power
Yeah.
as she's contemplating, and it's like, this seems like the spin-off shot right here.
Yeah. That's what was occurring to me as well. Like I was like, there's no way you can like bring up such a detail about her character and not like do something like spin-off like in the show itself. Like there's no way you can drop something like you used to live on Alderaan and just leave it there.
It's
There's like that's too big of a detail.
it's weird though. Cara Dune's a fine supporting character, right? I'm not a massive fan of her character.
Yeah.
Um, but Gina Carano, I don't think she has, frankly, the acting chops for her own to be the star of her own series.
Hmm.
I think she can do well in the supporting role,
Yeah.
but I don't think she's ready for being a star yet. I saw her in Steven Soderbergh's film, film of his a few years ago.
She was also in a Deadpool.
Yeah, yeah, and she was good in her role in Deadpool, because her role was a very one dimensional
Hmm.
character in Deadpool.
Yeah.
But I'm just, I don't really want them to go in that direction. I think there are a lot of better ideas,
Like I yeah
like Bo-Katan, a Bo-Katan
yes,
series would
exactly what I
be
was gonna say.
much more interesting than a Cara Dune series.
Well, that's the thing that like to like pivot back to like what the start of this point where like where does Karga and Dune go from here? Like this episode, like as much as I was like it's cool to see everyone back together, I was like there are like diminishing returns in these characters just because like season one, like Mando ran into Cara Dune and then he needed his help later. Karga used to be his boss, and then like they had their like push and pull relationship out season one, and now I'm like there's only so much you guys can still do and like matter just because like Cara Dune is the marshal and they're all stuck on that planet. So it's kind of like the Cobb Vanth situation. At least like um they have to have a good reason to come back to that planet because they're not like travel they're stuck on that planet. So it's gonna be like you're gonna have to convince us that like yes we have to go back yet again to the same planet we've returned to like 3 4 times already. So I don't know where they could like slot them in. I feel like that Alderaan tease was like done on purpose to help prolong Cara Dune's like lifespan, like character lifespan in the show for whatever reason. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to where that goes. I just hope they keep it Mando centric, and I don't like this revisiting planets thing.
Mhm.
Um, I don't I don't know. We're gonna get into the end, and then we'll do some speculation on stuff we want to talk about.
Yeah.
So we find out there's a tracker on Mando's ship, but then
Mhm.
we get this shot of the bottom of a Star Destroyer, and what do we see? The massive gun that destroyed Kijimi in The Rise of Skywalker.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
First off, that shot, as soon as it came into screen, I was like, John Favreau wrote this, and then I was like, John Favreau, Carl Weathers, you goddamn geniuses, because I was like, this is the opening shot of the entire franchise from like episode 4. The whole
right.
like, and I was like, I don't know whose idea this was. I guess it was Favreau as the writer, but I was like, that was wonderful. Thank you for that.
And Ludwig's score for this episode, and that's the final few scenes with the Empire in particular,
Yeah,
are just so on the spot in helping portray the emotion and kind of like that feeling of like, uh-oh, like something bad is going to go down for Mando.
right.
So we see Moff Gideon with what possibly could be either a design for like they're in the testing stage or a prototype of this planet killing weapon, or they already have it.
Right.
Which I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I think it's just like some sort of big cannon,
Mhm.
because if they already had the planet killing weapon, I mean, why wouldn't they have just made more of those ships instead of Starkiller Base? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But it's also like it could be like, who knows? So they put the tracking device on Mando's ship. We go, Moff Gideon gets the report, and he's like, good. And basically, then there's this camera shot with the camera moving back, and it reveals this massive group of imperial armored. We don't know if they're like humans, humanoids,
Mhm.
or just straight up droids, but they seem like a very ominous, ominous, easy for me to
Yes.
say, um, you know, group that he has major plans for. And BC says, we'll be ready, referring to when they find Mando.
Right.
Um, so obviously he has something in store. Obviously those things are pretty powerful if he's spending time looking at them. What were your thoughts on the ending of this episode? And then we'll go into like what could happen going forward.
I had no idea what was happening because I was like half expecting like he had more test tubes, but then it was like all this like black armor. I was like, are those the Death Troopers from the season 1 finale? But I was also like, they wouldn't. There's such an ominous vibe and such like a like foreshadowing vibe. I was like, this can't be the same guys because it just like they were already introduced with like relatively little fanfare. They just showed up in season 1, so I was like, it wouldn't be such a big thing if you had like more of them. So I was like, I have no idea who these guys were. I actually had to go like read up on like what could happen with him because I generally hadn't like was not sure what was like what he had in store. Although one has to assume like he believes it has to be some sort of legitimate threat to the force wielding Baby Yoda and like Mando. So um I guess I don't know, classic villain stuff when they reveal like they have that card up their sleeve, I guess.
Yeah. And with that, let's go into some speculation here. Now, I've read conflicting reports that Ahsoka appears in episode 5 and Filoni directs episode 5, but
Right.
I've also heard that it might actually be episode 6.
Interesting.
Now, I don't know who's right and who's wrong. I've heard them both from people who are very reliable,
Yeah.
which is why it's confusing for me.
Kind of that office meme, like who's telling the truth, who's telling the truth.
Exactly. Uh, so I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm curious if Mando's going to lead the Empire to Ahsoka Tano. And
That's
you
what
know what Ahsoka Tano has? Midichlorians. And what are they looking for?
midichlorians. I was just thinking like, holy shit, if I get to see Ahsoka Tano face off against Giancarlo Esposito, that'll be forever the greatest thing I've seen in 2020. That'll be like I'm just anticipating because we haven't seen like I don't know if Moff Gideon's a very physical character, but I was like Giancarlo Esposito facing off against Ahsoka. The fact that they could like meet and that we have the whole Empire now finally have the lead on Mando. Like that's so exciting. This is gonna be such a crazy like clash of
Right. Yeah, and I was going to say, you know, Ahsoka Tano would definitely like destroy Moff Gideon, no matter who he is, in a matter of seconds, because
Right.
she's a Jedi and a really powerful Jedi who went, toe to toe with Darth Vader, one of the most powerful Sith Lords the galaxy's ever seen.
Mhm.
But it's been forever since we last saw Ahsoka. We don't know what her character journey's been like. We don't know
Right.
who she is as a character now. It's been what, like 5, no, even longer, like 7 years,
Mhm.
8 years, 9 years since we last actually saw her as a character, if you don't count that little like end of Rebels where they go off to find Ezra thing.
Right.
So we don't know how she's changed. We don't know what type of character she is. But there's also other important stuff. What do you think is going to happen with Boba Fett? Because we talked about Boba Fett episode 1. It was like this big thing. Oh my God,
Yeah.
it's Boba Fett. And now everyone forgot. What's going to happen with it?
Dude, I have no. And the thing is, like, again, to bring it back to the planet hopping thing, Boba's stuck on Tatooine, assumedly, unless like he like built himself up a ship in the the past few years. But like,
I feel like he could jump someone and take a ship.
arguably, yeah. Like, if there's a scene where like you see him like yeah, like jump someone, steal the ship, like it's like that'll be fine, and he goes off in searching. But there's also the chance that somehow Mando ends up on Tatooine again, and he has to go face off against Boba. I mean, like this is getting redundant. This is getting ridiculous. He has to come back to the same damn planet.
Right.
I have no idea. Like, Bo-Katan is looking for the dark saber. Fair enough. Ahsoka, Mando has to return Baby Yoda to her. Fair enough. Um, I like Cobb Vanth, like Baby Yoda, Boba Fett. I had like generally like unless for somehow like the last few episodes sees Moff Gideon like he knows Boba's back and he goes to like hire him or something,
Mhm.
which I don't know how much that would make sense if he has all these like new stormtroopers or whatever. But I that's like the one way I could see them reintroducing it because Boba has no stakes in this other than his wardrobe has been taken by Mando. He has literally no stakes in this otherwise. So I
Right.
have no
And
idea. Like then wait, sorry, just before you go, is my bad. The next episode is like the fifth episode, right?
correct.
That means there's like 4 episodes left to argue to introduce Ahsoka, reunite, or at least bring Moff Gideon back to Mando for another face-off. Presumably address Boba, and then maybe bring back Cobb Vanth and yeah, Cobb Vanth and Bo-Katan, excuse me. And I'm like, will they do it in 4 episodes? Maybe not. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you could argue though that that is motivation for Boba Fett because in
Mhm.
Mandalorian culture, you know, having that armor is extremely important.
Right, right.
It's a symbol, and if it's, I believe it's his father's armor.
Yeah, I was thinking that
Um, so it may be something that is extremely like deeply personal to him and important. So that could be a motivation. But I think I'm really excited for where this could go. I think there's a lot of stuff going down. I'll be curious if they pull what they did last season, where Mando knows he has some big fight that
Mhm.
he's gonna have to go into, and he calls Cara Dune and Grief Karga. He gets Cobb Vanth.
He gets the
You
gang
know,
back together.
maybe Bo-Katan shows up and they're fighting the Empire. Who knows? Maybe they could be on Mandalore in the season finale, and it could
Maybe.
be
I'm
this
telling you,
revelation of
yeah.
Mando finally goes to you know, the home planet, even though it's not where he was
Yeah.
born. But
I'm telling you, season 3 is so ripe for a reclaiming of Mandalore's storyline. It's ridiculous. There's so much they could do with that concept.
right, in talking with other people before we go, there are a few interesting things because there's so much to speculate about this episode. This may run a little long, uh, but does Baby Yoda get captured this season? Or does Baby Yoda, get returned to where Baby Yoda's supposed to be and he's kind of off? Or does the show not work without having Baby Yoda there?
I think the show, both on a, I think the show doesn't work, at least at this, like, we don't have no idea how the show could evolve from like this point going forward. But like, I feel like as of right now, knowing how it's been, I don't think it can survive without Baby Yoda in the sense that he's so critical to Mando's arc of like the nature versus nurture, the whole like theme recurring theme around violence. Like and like as I was saying earlier, like how we see him in just his intonation and how he like is like dealing with people. Like there's like a softening to him. So I feel like if anything, it would be like arguably a season 3 moment where he says like goodbye and like it's some big moment where like he knows like he's changed. But I feel like for right now, there's still ways to go before we solidify that point.
Right. I'll be really curious when how all that stuff resolves itself. I'm having an easy time talking today. And just how they set up future seasons. I think Mandalore is going to play a huge part in the story going forward.
Mhm.
I think that is the key to be unlocked. I think that is what everything comes down to. But I want to know, why is Mandalore so important to the Empire?
Yeah.
Like what makes it that they are trying to exterminate every single Mandalorian specifically?
Yeah,
Like,
there's still so much to reveal about Gideon and the remnants of the Empire. There's still so many things. There's still like Esposito needs to get more than 4 lines in an episode still. Like
right.
there's still so much to explore and so much to do.
Mm-hmm. But last thing, Carl Weathers, what did you think of his directing of the episode?
I enjoyed it. Like I would say like for the first half, I was like it's pretty good. Like it's nothing like egregious happened like as like from what we've like learned at like college or like nothing like completely like out of like nothing crazy. But then the second half with all the action, that's when I was like, every Mandalorian director knows how to shoot action, and Carl Weathers did it really well. Like I said, I really enjoyed those last like I don't know 20-ish minutes, maybe like 15, but like as an action director, like him, Dallas Howard, like it really great stuff.
Yeah, I think he did a solid job. I think anyone who directs these episodes is obviously a very good director.
Mhm.
Um, there are moments where I was like, this is kind of, it didn't feel like it was the best hit, the best work,
Yeah,
but it never took me out of the
yeah,
episode at all. And he was in Rocky 3 and 4. The dude knows how to do action, right?
right, yeah, for sure.
He was made a star from action.
Mhm. I will also say that like props to him, but like I know it can be tricky sometimes to direct yourself on camera. Like I know
Right.
like, Ben Affleck's like the most famous example in my head. Like that's always like a tricky thing to hop between front of the camera, back of the camera. So cool that he like that's the episode he chose to direct is one he's in. So yeah, I think he did a great job, at least for like especially the action stuff at the end.
Yeah, I 100% agree. With that, that wraps up our review of season 2, episode 4 of The Mandalorian. Let us know what you guys thought of the episode down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out.